Hi, I'm actor Ian Champion, and welcome to History of Horror Cinema, my personal podcast tour of the good, bad, and the ugly of horror movie history. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 1912. One of the earliest film versions adapted from Robert Louis Stevenson's classic novella was this 1912 release by Black Hawk Films, and directed by sometime actor Lucius Henderson, who later claimed that he discovered Rudolph Valentino. As the titular dual-personality doctor, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde stars veteran movie actor James Cruze, who later went on to work at Paramount in comedy silent shorts with Wallace Reed and Roscoe Arbuckle. There are certainly some unfortunate comic undertones in this adaptation, not to mention changes to the plot to suit budgetary and time constraints to accommodate a one-reel, 12-minute format. Immediately upon opening, we see the blonde-haired Jekyll, reminiscent of a young Charlie Chaplin, in his lab reaching for the flasks and, before glugging down his new potion, a few expressions of understandable trepidation. He has been consulting an industry text with the amusingly libel-baiting title, Graham on Drugs. The first transformation is simply achieved by stopping the filming, then substituting Hyde in his place and continuing to film, a special effect trick used ever since its discovery by accident by Georges Méliès almost 20 years before, as I discussed in my early episode on Méliès. Cruze's Hyde is now a dark-haired, snarling beast with stark-staring eyes, courtesy of what looks like mascara underlining them, fanged teeth, and heavy brows. Hunched over, he rages at the world with clawing hands. Fellow fans of The Who may recognize a certain raddled Keith Moon look about him, apt considering that the film manages to convey Jekyll's seething addiction as a form of increasing alcohol dependency. There is a fast dissolve back to Hyde's well-groomed alter ego, allowing us to see him courting the minister's daughter, one of many alterations from the book that the film makes, which at least here enables a saintly contrast with Jekyll's hideous hidden evil. An intertitle suddenly jumps the timeline to some months later, whereby now the drug causes him to change to his evil self against his will. Hyde has by now become a notorious menace, intriguingly not in the usually authentic setting of the City of London, but in the village in which Jekyll lives. Bad luck for the Doctor, as that makes his wicked other side harder to conceal than in a crowded metropolis. You know how village folk talk. Jekyll finds Hyde's desire to show himself also puts a damper on his love life, interrupting his woodland idyll with his fiancée when the urge to transform grips him. His sweetheart is played by Florence Labadie, who was introduced to film by her friend Mary Pickford. Subsequently, she became a star, notably later working with D.W. Griffith, but is most famous for The $1 Million Mystery, a serial she co-starred in with James Cruze in 1914. Sadly, there's no mystery as to what happens next, as Hyde attacks her and kills her father when he comes to the rescue. A mustached village policeman pursues him to his home, where he safely turns back to Jekyll. In the next scene, after we learn that Jekyll wants to get away from the pain he is causing his fiancée, he coincidentally sees her on the street. Not that unlikely in a village? Just as he seems to confess his uncontrollable tendency to morph into a 70s rock star drummer, he cannot unhide any longer, and has to leave her without explanation. Back home, his butler, Poole in the novel, hears a commotion and calls the police, fearing that this wild man has gained entry to his master's study. The cop hacks down the door with an axe, but it is too late. Hyde has poisoned himself to death. Disappointingly, the onlookers only see his monster face. The film robs us of the all-important chance for him to transform back to Jekyll before his fiancée. Overall, this version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is a rushed, sketchy yet interesting archive piece from the very earliest days of silent horror cinema. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe.